Hi, and welcome to another episode of Conversation with a Chef. I'm Jo Ritty, and I love sharing with you the conversations I get to have with talented and passionate chefs. It's the backstory, if you will, to the food they're putting up. I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians of the unceded land where this conversation takes place, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. When I arrived at Tarra, Jacques was in the thick of service. Mike is executive chef for Searoad Hospitality, overseeing Tarra in Queenscliff, Onda in Sorrento, the ferry offerings, and now Wilsons Prom too. We spoke about Tarra as a postcard for the Bellarine Peninsula, and Onda as its Mediterranean-leaning counterpart across the bay. A restaurant over the water with wood-fired cooking, seafood, and the feeling of having stepped into a small fishing village without ever leaving Victoria. We also went back through Mike's career, an oyster farm in Chile, the Press Club, Philippe Mouchel, Michelin-starred London kitchens, Claridge's, Geelong's Tulip, and the decision to step away from the chase just enough to make room for family. What stayed with me most was the way Mike talked about food as being something temporary but powerful. A plate is made, eaten and gone, but the memory of it can linger for years. Hi Mike, it's lovely to meet you.
You too.
And it's lovely to arrive and see you in the full thrust of service.
Yeah, it was a busy one today.
Yeah. So it's a Monday. Yep. What is it, because it's school holidays, or do you just...
School holidays plays a part. We also, one thing that we really pride ourselves on is being for the locals. And so we've got all sorts of offers that attract the locals in. I mean, this time of the year in winter, it's very much a big part of our trade is our locals.
Okay,
Over summer, we pivot a little bit, and we've got a holiday crowd down, and we offer a slightly different menu for that kind of thing. But it's the locals that keep us going through the winter.
Yeah, Queenscliff is such a beautiful place. There's so much to do here, and I feel like now that Tarra's here as well, what a beautiful place to come to eat. How long has Tarra been here?
Tarra's been here for about 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's still a very new building, very new entry to the town in the scale of Queenscliff. Queenscliff's one of those real sort of historic towns where it takes a long time to be part of the fabric of Queenscliff. It's something that I've really, made a big part of my job is to make sure that we do engage the locals and to get them to use this beautiful building that we've got. I think because it is so striking and so new and so different to anything else that's in Queenscliff, there was definitely sort of an element of trepidation about it. But when we get people in to experience it and they see that view and they have that experience of dining right on the waterfront and things, we're turning them around one by one, I think. So
yeah. What an entrance to Queenscliff. And so what's on the menu at Tarra?
So Tarra's very much what I like to think of it as a postcard for the Bellarine. So we want to make sure that when you walk into Tarra, you have an expectation of what you're going to see on the menu. I think you think seafood, local produce, that sort of thing, that the view does so much of the talking for us. So I just want to make sure that the menu reflects that as well. So we've got beautiful local fish, like our fish and chips is a flathead, which is caught locally. We've got at the moment some King Dory, which comes from around the east coast of Victoria, like right on the borderline with New South Wales. And lots of local produce as well. So we work with some really great suppliers and farmers down here. So this time of year, like the dory is served with roast parsnips and pickled green apples and a dill sauce. Other things are, we've got a beautiful braised lamb neck on the moment, which has got a garlic caramel glaze, roasted swede, a black garlic mayonnaise, and crispy kale chips as well. So really, really leaning into that winter sort of, moorish stick to your ribs kind of food at the moment.
Delicious.
Because we do honestly get people who are out for a bracing walk on the beach, and then they come on into Tarra and they want something to warm them up and feel nourishing. So.
Yeah, it's very cozy down there as well. But having that, just that sea right outside, I can't even believe it. And you're saying that at Onda, so across the way in Sorrento, it's even more.
Yeah.
It's even closer to the water.
That's right. The only way that you can be closer to the water is what we've done over in Sorrento, where the whole ferry terminal is actually over the like on the stilts over the water. It's tucked into the Sorrento pier, so it really feels like it's kind of floating alongside the pier. And it's a bit of a different offering over there. So a big part of what we do is that the trip on the ferry is not just a transport. It's not a bus ride or a train trip. It's a journey somewhere, and we love to think that we're part of people's holidays. And so what I want to make sure is that people who are in Queenscliff or in Sorrento and going out for a day out, they get a very different offering at either end of the ferry journey. Yeah. So in Sorrento we have Onda, and the name and the concept for Onda came about because when we stood there in the building site and they had the big glass windows just going in and there were people fishing on the pier, and I just kind of thought, this really feels like, you know, you're in a little fishing village in the Mediterranean somewhere. We've got a pizza oven there. And so, you know, there is a great tradition of these little restaurants where they're serving up what's been caught today. They've got a wood fire oven, and, you know, it can be small plates of fish or a pizza or something hearty and braised in the oven. So that's very much what we do over there. But yeah, it is, if possible, it's even more spectacular view than here, because it's 180 degrees. It's a curved building. Wow. So yeah, 180 degree views completely over the bay. So you get everything from Mount Martha, you get Melbourne on a good day, and everything in between. So.
Wow, it sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I've seen a lot, actually. I've seen a lot of photos on Instagram. It looks beautiful and the food looks amazing. How long have you been involved with this?
I've been here for about 1.5 years.
Oh, okay.
So I came on board, it was just Tarra.
Yeah.
And Tarra was sort of due for a little revamp. The previous chefs had just finished, and they had a bit of an Italian sort of style for Tarra. But we changed, and I really just wanted to lean into that that sense of context and that sense of place in the menu. So we changed that up, and I sort of got that settled, and then we went straight into opening Onda. So we opened Onda in March this year, and it's been crazy. It's been really, really busy.
Yeah, people obviously want that, and maybe it's because it does, as you say, it offers that sort of holiday feeling, and without having to get on a plane.
That's right. Well, and the other cool thing is that it is literally, I think it's the only operating restaurant venue in Victoria which is completely over the water, and so it's really unique. I mean, you literally walk out onto the pier to access the restaurant, and I think the people of Sorrento have been watching it be built as well. For, you know, it's been a 3-year process of building. And that was an incredible feeling to open the doors on the first day. And we didn't advertise that we were opening. We didn't sort of tell everybody, righto, today's the day. But the people who had been watching it be built just came wandering in and said, right, we want to see what it's all about. And it was really super exciting. So.
Yeah. Congratulations on the Golden Plate Award.
Thank you.
Is that for the whole... You got the chef
so
award.
the restaurant got a few awards, and I won the Chef of the Year as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so the Golden Plate is a regional award.
It is, yeah. So it's organised. Restaurants throughout regional Victoria can apply. It sort of tends to be quite a few from the Geelong, Ballarat, Bendigo sort of region at the moment, but it's expanding every year, and this year it's going to be much bigger than it was last year as well. So it's a really nice thing to be involved in. You know, I think especially the Chef of the Year competition, when we do a cook-off, it's a great way for me and the other chefs to sort of get to know each other a bit more.
Yeah.
It can be quite an isolated job where you're, you know, head down, bum up in your restaurant all the time, and you don't get that much opportunity to get out and meet other chefs who are working in the industry in the town. So I love, you know, being able to meet a few more chefs and to hang out together on some of the days that we had out. So it was great.
So what did you have to do for that?
Well, first of all, the nomination comes from the inspection of the restaurant. So we applied for various awards for Tarra, and then when they come out and dine in the restaurant, then the judges put forward 8 chefs from the restaurants that are in contention for Chef of the Year. And so then you go up to Melbourne for a day where you bring a dish of your own, and then there's a mystery box. And you cook both you have 45 minutes of prep time followed by 45 minutes of cooking time. And you present the 2 dishes. And then it's judged by a panel of judges on the day. And there's a short interview afterwards and things. And that's it. So yeah, it was really interesting. It was quite high pressure, but really good fun.
What was in your box?
It was an odd one. So we had whole flathead, which we fillet and things like that in the prep time. We had leek, hazelnut, mandarin, honey, eggs, butter, and frise Onda, like curly bitter lettuce. So it was pretty eclectic. But I made I fried the flathead with a sort of mandarin and honey sabayon sauce, and grilled leek with the shaved hazelnuts and things over the top. So
wow,
sort of a bit of classic French from my background.
Yeah,
but yeah, really nice.
It's so good. I mean, I can do some simple things from the cupboard, but I'm just always amazed at chefs with those mystery boxes, how you can come up with things in under those hard conditions as well, stressful conditions.
It's always kind of, you just need one thing to get you started. So, you know, as soon as I thought about how I was going to prepare the fish, then I kind of thought, okay, well, that would be nice, you know, with this. And you just, one thing leads on to another, and you start to put bits and pieces together. So yeah, it was just kind of comes spur of the moment, and that's sort of, I wouldn't have been able to do it 15 years ago in my career, but now it's kind of second nature. Yeah,
for sure. And so what's it like being an executive chef when your other part of the venue is across the water? How do you manage that?
I'm really lucky that I've got a fantastic head chef over at Onda.
Okay.
So he takes the reins day to day a lot. He and I are on the phone every day. I kind of go over there a couple of days a week, but realistically, he's the man on the ground most of the time. And a big part of my job is just trying to support him in his role. But we work really closely together, and then sort of my role now, more so than being, well, I was hands-on in the kitchen today, but more so than being hands-on in the kitchen is to try and really get that synergy going between having the two restaurants. So rather than seeing it as a challenge, where are the opportunities of having two different spaces, two different restaurants, two full teams of chefs that we can draw upon to make both restaurants work better. And we've actually even just taken on a third project, which is the general store in Tidal River in Wilsons Prom.
Oh.
And so we're, so now it's sort of 3 venues at once, where sometimes it's a bit like spinning plates, where you sort of get to touch points in each restaurant, you know, every couple of days, and make sure that everything's ticking along.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, there's a lot of, I've got to be able to switch my thinking between, because they are very different venues as well. So I've got to be able, I literally have different t-shirts, and sometimes I look down to see which t-shirt I'm wearing, and that's I've got to be in that frame of mind.
What's the offering at Wilsons Prom?
It's very much a sort of kiosk. It's we're in the process of renovating at the moment. So once we've renovated, there'll be a bit more of an interesting menu, but it's kind of what campers expect. So there is fish and chips and burgers and that sort of thing. We're working towards having the team at Onda produce wood-fired pizzas to be reheated down there as well.
Yeah, right.
And then so we're looking at a few months of renovations, and then when we get back in there, then there'll be much more of a it will never be a fine dining kind of offering, but just a more quality grab and go sort of style.
And when you came on board here, did you know these other things were in the works?
I knew Sorrento was in the works. I didn't know Wilsons Prom was in the works yet. So yeah, there's but we're a growing company, we're an ambitious company, so we want to make sure that we're taking opportunities where they come. And I find it really exciting. I think there's some comfort in having business as usual, but it's also very exciting to have new things on the go all the time, and I learn new skills every time I do it. A big part of me stepping away from a small fine dining restaurant into a large company was that I wanted to expand my skill set in a sort of a corporate environment and in lots of different sort of offerings. And so now I'm overseeing 2 restaurants, 2 cafes, a general store, and 2 kiosks on the boats. So very different offerings, and hopefully in a good way, with my sort of fingerprint on all of them in a certain way. So
that's incredible. That's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
But I think it's always interesting talking to chefs because the chefs that I speak to always seem to be so curious and so desiring to learn more and keep going. I don't think I've ever spoken to a complacent chef.
No.
And I think that's really exciting for you, but it's great for the diners as well to be having those kind of people behind the plate. Yeah,
I think people like that are attracted to the industry because it is so sort of temporary, I guess. You know, people who build things or artists who make a work of art of things and it's there and they can look at it. Whereas with us, you know, every plate it's destroyed in the act of enjoying it, where you know, you make something really special and you give it to someone to enjoy it and then it's gone. And so you never have a portfolio of work to stop and admire, really. You're just the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So I think that's definitely something that sort of drives me, is that there's, although, you know, I can look back on my career and think about restaurants that I've worked in and things like that, but it's always very much what's the next dish that's going out, what's the next menu, what's the next seasonal change, all that sort of stuff. So
I've actually never heard anyone, a chef, put it like that before, and it's actually so poetic and beautiful. That ephemeral nature of things,
Yes.
though, means that that sometimes, though, they live in your memory. So if you've had a really amazing meal, flavours, whatever, and the setting and so on, people will talk about that for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's so true.
And something that I really thought about as well, I mean, I've worked for some amazing chefs who have really guided me a lot, and the best ones, I think, always think more about the experience than just the act of eating. You know, it's sort of, there's always an element of theatre in how things are presented and how the service flows, and there's an element of sort of, you know, surprise and delight and that sort of stuff that we try and go for, because I think food is such an amazing trigger of emotion and memories and things like that. So you can, you know, if you do it right, you can cause people to have an experience from dining out, rather than just, well, I was hungry and now I'm full. So
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Where did it all start for you?
I was quite late to it. So I went off and went to uni and sort of struggled a bit at university, and then started working in food production and things. So I worked on an oyster farm in Chile in South America for a little while. Just didn't know what I was going to do, and that popped up, and I thought I'd give it a go. And I'm still obsessed with oysters. Oysters always appear on any menu that I'm offering. And then eventually, I was sort of 24 when I decided I'd go to TAFE. And so did my apprenticeship. I was lucky that I started, my first job was at the press club, back when it was two hats and in the big room, and it was right at the time where MasterChef was just starting and George was on MasterChef. So that was quite crazy, but really it was a great opportunity for me to start my career at such a high level, and just sort of have really good standards set from the start. And so I worked there for about a year and a half. And then that group opened a restaurant with Philippe Mouchel, and he came and did their sort of pre-opening dinner to announce that they were going to be doing a restaurant together at the press club. And I met him, and I was just, you know, totally awestruck by him and by his food and things. And so I went and worked for him for a year and a half, and that was amazing. He really, he still to this day is a huge mentor for me. He just, while I worked for him, just so, you know, so generous with his knowledge and with his time and things. And then I met my now wife while I was working there, and she's English and her visa ran out, and I said, okay, well, chef, I think I'm going to go and go to London for a while. And he sort of sat me down and we had a couple of hours conversation about, well, if you want to achieve this, then you should work in these kind of restaurants, and if you want to achieve something else, then this is the path, and that sort of thing. And he really kind of helped me to map out my career. And then, you know, since I've been back, we stay in touch a lot. We've done dinners together. We, you know, see each other. You know, he comes down on his day off and has lunch and things. So I was very, very fortunate to land with him early in my career. And then I went off to London. I went straight to Michelin star French classic sort of style restaurant. Very small team and working for the youngest Michelin star chef in London at the time. And that was, all the gory stories that you hear about that kind of restaurant. That's what it was. And to an extent, that's kind of like I jumped into that. I was very much in that frame of mind where I'm going to go over to London and get my ass kicked and become a great chef and blah, blah, blah. And that was really, really tough. So that was sort of just over a year of that. And yeah, all the cliches that you can imagine was during that. And then I decided to move on from there. I worked in a really fantastic gastro pub, which is run by an Australian chef called Trish Hilferty. It's called the Canton Arms, and that was brilliant. Just a completely different style of food that I'd seen, but really a great way to fill out gaps in my experience. It was whole animal butchery, lots of slow cooked dishes, lots of sort of really interesting ways of using cuts that I had never heard of, and a real sort of traditional English style of cuisine, which was brilliant. So I had a fantastic time there, and then I landed at Claridge's. So I was at Claridge's Hotel for 5 years, in a couple of restaurants there. So the first one was called Ferry, for a chef called Simon Rogan, and he's gone on to have multiple Michelin stars, including 3 stars at his place in the Lake District called Longclume. But that was, again, an amazing experience. Just, I've been lucky in my career to have what I call a couple of dandelion restaurants where there's just this concentration of talent, and then they all kind of drift off into the industry and then become head chefs and executive chefs and things all over the place. And that was one of those. It's just an incredible team to work with. Some of the best chefs in England, all working in one kitchen, really pushing each other. And I remember when I started there, I came home to my wife. I was just like, oh my God, these guys are just a different level. I don't know how I'm going to keep up. And then after 3 years in that restaurant, I was sous chef, and then they closed. Claridge just decided they were going to have a different sort of offering in that space. So they closed that restaurant, and then the new team that were coming in decided that they wanted me to be part of their opening team, but there was a year of renovations in the middle. So I became head baker at Claridge's for a year, making all the viennoiserie, all the bread, all the little bits for the afternoon tea and things like that. So that was a year of night shift baking, just because I just stupidly said, well, I'd really like to work on my pastry skills a bit, and then that was that. So that was while we were renovating, and then we reopened that restaurant with Daniel Hume. So the chef from 11 Madison Park opened his restaurant. I was sous chef in the opening team there. And that was, different again, just a very different style of food, very refined, very polished, very much the sort of, the mentality was that everything we did was to be the best in the world. There was no kind of near enough is good enough. The question for every time you chop chives, every time you bake bread, every time you cook a duck, is that the best in the world?
Wow.
And so that was incredible that they had the ambition of 3 Michelin stars there. And unfortunately, Daniel Hume decided that he was going to be a vegan, and Claridge just didn't like that idea. And so that closed that restaurant. And then I decided we'd move back to Australia. But that was during COVID, so.
Oh, wow, okay. What would happen, though, in a place like that if someone did make a mistake?
It depends what kind of mistake. Genuine mistakes, I think there's something that I've learned through my career that I really try and hold on to, is that there's no real point in criticizing or punishing skill errors. People don't want to burn things. People don't want to cut things wrong. If they're if they're concentrating and they're doing the process right, and something goes wrong, then you have to be able to accept that. If someone's deliberately taking shortcuts or wants to do it their own way or whatever it is, then that's kind of a systematic problem. But so there's a real distinction, and this was kind of working with those guys was a great way of refining that kind of distinction in my mind where, mistakes happen. And especially, every kitchen, no kitchen is made up of all superstars. You have people of every level of experience in all kitchens. Every kitchen has an apprentice and moving all the way up to the head chef. So, we have that ethos of, and I say it to my apprentice all the time here, apprentices don't make mistakes. They just show where they need more training. And so there's kind of that sort of mentality. If someone makes a genuine mistake, then okay, let's move on. But if it's a systematic problem where someone's not using the resources that they've been given, or someone's not, doing what they've been shown, then that's a different problem, and that would be treated very differently.
Yeah, that's right. So you come back and it's COVID.
Yeah.
And
so my wife and I have 2 boys. We decided that we wanted to move back here for the time for my oldest son to start prep, because he was going to be the kid in the school with an English accent and that sort of thing anyway. So we thought the best time would be to start him off with everyone, so they're still starting off new. But that was sort of Christmas 2020. So we Australia was sort of not in deep lockdown when we decided to move. And then we moved out of our flat, shipped all our stuff, and then we had flight after flight cancelled.
Wow.
And so we ended up being in an Airbnb for about 4 months, just living out of suitcases. And luckily I could keep working. So the guys knew that the team at Davies and Brook, which is the Daniel Hume restaurant that I work in, they were really understanding about it. And so I'd given my resignation, but they just let me keep working until I could actually leave. And then we got here. I was lucky that Tulip were advertising for a head chef at the same time as I was looking, and so I got that job via the phone from London.
Wow.
And then also I was super lucky that Graham at Tulip at the time was able to wait for me, because I think I signed a contract with them in August, and I arrived. My first shift was New Year's Eve, so we sort of had to hang on for a bit. We did hotel quarantine with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and all that sort of stuff. But
wow.
But it's been great. So I was at Tulip for 4 years, a year and a half as head chef, and then 2.5 years as one of the owners. And it was great. We got our chef's hat and retained it and lost it and got it back and all those kind of things. Very, very fun, very exciting, but terrible for family life and things like that. Just a lot of long hours, and I kind of realised at the end of that it wasn't really me who was making the sacrifice. I was doing what I wanted to do. I was chasing my dream and that sort of stuff, but it was the family who were actually making all the sacrifices. And so I decided I wanted to change, and I was approached by Searoad Hospitality. So
wow.
Yep, it was very, very fortuitous. Just good timing. They knew about me and knew about Tulip and approached me, and I was in the right headspace to give it a go.
That's really great, and it speaks volumes, I think. We were saying off mic that the name Tulip's come up quite a bit for me recently. It sounds like it was a bit of a dandelion restaurant for this area as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of great chefs have gone through there.
100%. I think what Graham and Matt Dempsey, so Graham Jeffries and Matt Dempsey, who started Tulip, and Graham really, it was his baby for 8 or 9 years. He's an incredible guy, and again, a really fantastic mentor to young chefs, and people who have worked for him have gone on to do a lot of great things as well. His restaurant now in Torquay, Samerson, is just phenomenal as well. So I was very lucky to get in there and made some fantastic relationships from working there. Yeah.
And did you originally come from this part of the world?
Well, no, my dad's from Geelong, but I grew up in Woodend, about an hour north of Melbourne.
Yeah.
So on a bit of a sort of sheep and and cow farm up there. So yeah, it was. I was definitely around food a lot, and Dad's a good cook and has a nice little sort of herb garden and things up there. So I kind of was always around for. I think I was probably the last person in my family to realise that I was going to be a chef. I think when I started at TAFE at 24, and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to be a chef. Everyone kind of went, obviously, like we've been waiting for that. So yeah.
But how amazing to go from London to regional Victoria.
It was great, and I was there was a little bit of trepidation about what I was going to find. Like we, as I said, my dad's from Geelong. I spent a lot of time there. I had spent summers down in Ocean Grove and things as a kid, and my wife, being English, wanted to live by the beach, so we moved to Ocean Grove. And I kind of thought, well, I'd been in these amazing restaurants and seen all the best produce of the world and things, and just thinking, what am I going to find in Geelong? And I was very lucky, landed in a fantastic team, people who were really keen for me to just express myself and make my own menus. Even when I was working for a terrific chef, he was happy for me to just take the restaurant in my own direction and build relationships with our suppliers and things. I remember I think it was the first week that I started at Tulip. A friend turned up at the back door of the restaurant with this enormous tray of incredible vegetables, and she explained that she worked at a place called The Paddock, so in Leopold, between here and Geelong, and it's owned by Give Where You Live Foundation, and essentially it is a disability support centre, but it's an organic farm, so it's operated by 7 disability support workers, and they have about 30 participants who do their support sessions by working on the farm. So they go through everything from working the soil, planting things, trimming and harvesting. They cook with the veg, they pickle it and things, and they supply some restaurants around Geelong. And everything that they grow is organic, biodynamic. They grow things not for any commercial reason, just because they taste good, because they're exciting, because they're interesting. And I used to go out there once a week and collect produce and talk about, wouldn't it be cool if we could grow this, or oh, those carrots are nice, but I'd love them if they were that big and things, and just got some really, really interesting, unique produce, but also from the best people around. So that was a really incredible relationship to build, and it really set me off. When I arrived here, I was worried, am I going to be able to get good quality produce? Am I going to be able to write a menu that says something about my philosophy of food, how I like to cook, and that sort of things? And then this relationship just materialized straight away, and it's really changed a lot about the way that I cook. In the same way as moving down here and having that real coastal influence has changed the way that I cook.
Yeah.
I think, I would hate to think that, at the start of my career, I said, right, this is my style and that's it. It's been a real constant evolution throughout 15, 16 years of working as a chef.
You have done a lot in that time.
Yeah, I've bounced around a bit, but I guess it's like you said, with that curiosity just drives you on to the next thing and the next thing.
Well, with all that in mind, and your experience here and overseas, and your curiosity, what's your advice to young people starting off as chefs?
Well, normally my advice to young people thinking about being chefs is don't do it. But I think it's one of those things. If you discourage someone and they still want to do it, then that it is the right job for them. So the first bit of advice is to make absolutely sure that it's the right thing for you. The second thing is to get that real breadth of experience. So my career has been kind of a real sort of, I don't want to say roller coaster because it sounds like it's bad things, but a real range of different styles of food and different markets of the industry. Some super fine dining, some casual and wholesome, and everything in between. And so I think that's really important to get a broad experience, and also just to really challenge yourself. I think, no growth happens in the comfort zone. So, I definitely, young chefs who work for me now, I kind of say, okay, well, if you give me a year, then I can set you up in London. If you give me 2 years, I can get you a senior position somewhere. You need to start your career with that ambition of how far can I go? And that's kind of what's really exciting in the industry, is that there's a direct path from any cooking job to the highest of cooking jobs if you want to take that hike. It's kind of with the apprentices that I had at Tulip, and I do it a little bit here as well, as we do this kind of chef of the week homework, where we give them a famous chef and they do a bit of research and who are they, why are they important in the industry, what's their kind of restaurant, what's their style of food, that sort of thing. And the reason I do that with them is because I want them to understand that cooking at Tarra can be the first step in working in a Michelin-star restaurant or running a 5-star hotel or that sort of thing. This industry is so brilliantly flat in that the opportunities are there for the people who want to take them. I always say to people who think, could I get a chef in London? Could I get a job in London as a chef? You can get a job anywhere. Then it's your job is to keep it, and so you've got to kind of, there's opportunities for people, but it's not easy. It's a really, really difficult profession to be in.
What do you love about it?
I love that experience of being able to give someone a really memorable moment. Like when we do dinners here at Tarra, we do a themed dinner once a month. So we might do, it might be beef, it might be seafood. We do one which is based on traditional techniques of preserving and curing and things like that. And I go out to the dining room and I'll explain the dishes as people are eating them. And I really love that moment of, being able to give people more than the experience of just eating. I think food is overlooked in the way that, with wine, you have a sommelier who can tell you all about how it's made and what kind of things you can taste from a different variety. Coffee is the same, beer is the same, where people go to a brewery and they'll explain to you all about the different techniques of making it. And I think with food it can be the same. If I spend, when we do these dinners, I spend half the night out in the dining room talking to people about the food, because I really believe that the more you know, the more you taste. And so when I can do that, people come up at the end and they say, the food was great, but it was better because of the explanation.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah. So great. Thank you so much,
My
Mike.
absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Conversation with a Chef with Mike Jacques at Tarra in Queenscliff and Onda in Sorrento. You can check out all the goodness on Instagram at tarra.queenscliff, that's TARRA.Queenscliff, and Onda Sorrento, ONDASORRENTO. And if you'd like to hear more stories from other chefs, I'm also on Instagram at Conversation with a Chef, and I post every time I put up a new conversation. You can read this chat online at www.conversationwithachef.com, and of course you can follow me on Apple and Spotify podcasts. I would love it if you told a friend about my chats. I still think it's the best way to get these delicious stories out into the world. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day, and bon appétit.